Welcome to episode 27 of the Nyrdcast podcast. This is Jay, and this episode's a little bit different than our normal one. Matt and I got together a few weeks ago to discuss the Marvel Comics Secret War event that finished last year. He hasn't read it yet, and he wanted to know some of the details about it. And we got into talking about the last 20 years of Marvel events and how it led into Secret Wars and what Marvel's planning on doing going forward. It was originally going to be a short episode, one of our little minis, but a half an hour discussion went well over an hour. So instead of breaking it up into two episodes and having nothing else of a regular episode, we'll just go ahead and do it as number 27. Hopefully in the next few weeks we'll get back together and start recording again. So, enjoy!
I don't think there'll ever be a time or a place for these thoughts of mine. All these icons run through my head, and I question everything I've read. Rip me from my shallow mind and force me to use my time. Did we ever clarify what really happens when we do?
We'll kind of do a quick comics recap of the Marvel universe. I've been more of a DC reader, and Jay is more of a Marvel guy. I think, Jay, you pretty much gave up on DC as soon as New 52 hit. Have you ever read anything DC since the New 52, or you give it up completely?
I tried reading Teen Titans, and I think it might have been Superboy. I think he had a title for a while, and they just weren't the same. So I gave up on those. I've read a little bit of the Batman stuff. That's pretty much been it.
Okay. Because, I mean, as far as the New 52, I was actually okay with it, because I don't mind when they reset stuff, because I'm one of those guys where it goes as far as continuity. You're talking about over 75 years worth of publication to try to keep up with everything, and when you when they reset the world, they kind of gave everyone a fresh start, saying, okay, we're going to jump on. You don't have to worry about anything that's happened before that. All that is now legend. This is all new canon, we'll say.
Yeah.
So but I like both Marvel and DC, and you're actually trying to read more Image stuff or more indie stuff. I used to have a pull list at a store, but I kind of got rid of a pull list. But here, I'm getting ahead of myself. We said we kind of go over our comics history. You go ahead, because yours is a little bit lengthier than mine. Yours is the reason why I actually got into comics to begin with, and was just, I dipped my toe in probably mid-90s, but then got really into it 2000-ish, we'll say. But you start with your story.
Yeah, I started probably in the early 90s. It was something we'd see at the grocery store, and I finally talked my parents into buying one. And I think it was G.I. Joe 118. And then it was all downhill from there. And a lot of what I focused on after that, besides like the toys I grew up with, like the G.I. Joes, the Transformer comics, was the X-Men. And I became a huge Wolverine fan and have pretty much bought every Wolverine title since then. But the last 5 or 10 years, I've probably switched more to Image, a lot of the creator-owned stuff. It's easier to get into. It's a lot more than just the superhero stuff, and I've kind of gotten more into that. So now it's pretty much Walking Dead, Deadpool, Wolverine, and then random Image titles here and there.
Yeah. I guess with my story, because mine kind of collides with yours, to be honest with you, because you got me into it when you showed me issue number 1 of Spawn. That was when the big jump from all those Marvel artists kind of went off and said, hey, it kind of in comics history, all the power was with the writers for, the Gold Age, Silver Age, and all of a sudden, you got into where the artists kind of became they were the hot shots, the big deals, because you had Liefeld, Jim Lee, Silvestri, right? Who else would you say?
McFarlane, Eric Larson.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's one or two more. I can't think of them right now.
Well, I guess could we say McFarlane was probably the most outspoken one at the time?
Yeah, I would say he was one of the most. I think
Yeah.
Liefeld is pretty outspoken too.
Yeah. And then basically you gave me a copy, or you said, hey, yeah, give me a copy of Spawn 1, and I was like, oh, this is badass, you know. I don't even, how would we even describe Spawn, to be honest with you? Yes, he was you kind of like described him like he's Batman with superpowers, but he's like from hell or something like that. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is metal, dude. So I got into that because the artwork was phenomenal. I really liked that. But then, because that was 90, well, that had to be 90s, right? That was 95-ish, maybe?
Maybe even before that.
No, 92. I think it was 92.
Yeah, I think it was 92.
Because that was your first attempt to kind of get me into the world. And I like, okay, I liked that. I went and collected Spawn. That was like the only title I got. And so then I went away, you know, with it because I had high school, you know, at 96. And then right towards the end of high school was when you got me back into it. And I was into Ultimate Spider-Man. That was the big one that started my disease, we'll say, my addiction of, you know, going to a shop and then, you know, hey, go ahead and pull that. I basically had a pull list of one.
Yeah.
It was basically that one book, but I was always anxious to, you know, go in there. And finally, when the new issue came out, over time, my list got larger and larger. And it was like, you know, every week, it wouldn't be anything to drop, you know, hey, here's $40, $50 every single week when, you know, Wednesday pull came.
Yeah.
And Wednesdays were the day. And me and you would go over to, here in St. Louis, our local shop it's called the Fantasy Shop.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, there's been a lot more stores that have opened up in St. Louis. They were always there. We just never knew about them, maybe. I don't know.
Some of them
more about them than I did.
Some of them were there. But yeah,
but
Fantasy Shop
they weren't
was the
prevalent,
main.
right? It wasn't like you said. You first found yours in a grocery store. I would find books at a bookstore called actually Borders. Remember Borders, that bookstore?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A couple of the mall stores had them.
Yeah.
That's where I would find books here. They're mostly at a grocery store, to be honest with you. But they were not. The only place that was huge into it, not only did they have comics, but they had gaming, was Fantasy Shop. And then you know, I was always big into the Batman cartoon, and all of a sudden I'm like, all right, I'm going to get back into Batman. I picked up Batman Detective. You got me into Robin. I was like, Robin, you know, because my main exposure to Robin, to be honest with you, was just Robin from the 66 series, to be honest with you. And a little bit from animated series.
Yeah.
But then you're like, no, you got to understand. You're talking about Tim Drake, Robin's the one, because that was the one, Mencia, am I pronouncing his name right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, because you were the one that would read that one. You're like, no, this Robin is awesome. You got that. And all of a sudden, I was like, okay, now that I'm into Robin, I got all into the Batman family, and boom, we go from there. But the Ultimate Universe is what brought me big time into Marvel, and you had me start. I think you were the one that turned me on to New X-Men from Grant Morrison, because that was awesome. I think it was Morrison and Silvestri, so the art was really good, and that was one of those Morrison stories where Morrison wasn't completely, you know, on acid, writing his crazy stuff.
Just
partially. Not completely. Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, that's when I dove into the Marvel world versus just, you know, the Ultimate stuff and mostly just the Batman stuff for DC. And then I guess the main point of this topic was I'd emailed you the other day about Secret Wars. And I was like, dude, is this event even done? Because Secret Wars is the big thing that was going on. And you're like, because I was like, it seems like there's so many titles to this. And, I guess I missed the part of the story where I go, hey, I got big into comics, going to the shop. You did the same thing. You were going on a weekly basis. I stopped for a little bit when I went to school. I went away from school for a year, came back. When I got back, I guess 01-ish, 02-ish, got way back into comics again. And this is when I started, you know, filling up the long boxes and whatnot. But eventually I stopped going to the shop and I started ordering mine online and having my comics mailed from the store in Nebraska, because this guy was offering big time discounts on books. So I was doing that, and then now more than anything I get my books digitally and from the library, because it's just books. Remember what Spawn? I think the cover price of Spawn was maybe $2.25.
Yeah, I think
back
so.
in 92, 90, whatever we said. Now, what for a Marvel book, it's like minimum $4, and the big stuff's like how much is it to even get a Secret War book off of Comixology? I think for a digital comic, it's even like $6, maybe $7.
Yeah, I think they were running $3.99 for the actual issue, and then some of the smaller titles are still at $2.99, but that builds up pretty quick when you're buying 10 books.
It's buying multiple titles, yeah, exactly. And the weekly bill of $50 for comics, that you can't go home to your wife and say, "Oh, hey, I dropped $50," and she's like, "Yeah, well, we need groceries."
Yeah.
So trying to follow
Don't
all
need
the titles.
to eat.
So, I mean, trying to follow all the titles, and that's why I emailed you. I haven't been picking them up at all. And I was like, okay, here's the problem. There's so many titles in Marvel. I mean, just take Spider-Man alone. The Spider-Man family. I mean, they do it with DC too, the Batman family. But Spider-Man, you got Spider-Gwen now. You got Spider-Girl. You got Silk. You've got
there's
what is there now? There's
a
Venom,
Spider-Verse or
Venom,
something.
Yeah, Spider-Verse, and what they did something with Venom, and then because he's Flash Thompson now, that's just my small example of one corner. You go to the Hulk. There's a whole bunch of Hulk books.
Yeah,
X-Men. How many Avenger books are there now? There's like at least a minimum of 2 Avengers books that I know of. There's new Avengers, right? There's 4 Avengers books now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much. And I mean, okay, X-Men. Talk about X-Men. I don't know how in the 90s you found all the X-Men books. There's at least a minimum of 4 or 5 titles, right? Because you have like Excalibur, X-Men.
Yeah, they had
X-Factor. I mean, keep going down the line. X-Force, Wolverine solo titles.
Yeah, Uncanny X-Men.
Yeah.
And then you got into like Cable and Deadpool and.
Yeah. So when our email, I was saying, hey, we got oversaturation. I can't keep up. And you're like, and I basically went to you to go, hey, school me on this. What do I really need to read? Because I know when they do these huge events, it's basically you got the main event title, then you got all the supporting books that kind of still have their own thing going on, but they want to tie in issues, right?
Yeah.
So that led us to talking about, hey, do we want to get on and do a mini episode basically outside of our normal Nerdcast crew and kind of just go over Marvel events. And I was going to kind of start from the point of when I got back into Marvel stuff. And when you got, I mean, you went through, I guess, what, you said 90s, right? I'm going back to Wikipedia's thing. Did you hit the Infinity War back then?
Oh, yeah. I got
the
all
Gauntlet?
the issues.
Okay.
Yeah, Infinity
So
Gauntlet,
let me go
Infinity
back.
War.
Okay, well, here, I'm looking at the 80s. This might be too early for you, like Mutant, like Secret Wars 2, or even Secret Wars, I guess, the original. Were you reading during the original release of that?
I wasn't during the original release, but I have every issue of Secret Wars 2.
Gotcha. Okay, so then then next was the Mutant Massacre, Fall of Mutants, Evolutionary War, Inferno, Atlantis Attacks, Acts of Vengeance. Do any of those sound familiar?
Yeah, I know of all of them. I've read most of them. I think I
Okay.
came in right after Inferno.
Okay. Because then I guess the next biggest one in the 90s, I guess Infinity Gauntlet would have been a huge one, right?
Yeah.
With Thanos using the Infinity Gems. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, this is all before I started really reading, but I'm vaguely familiar with the whole Infinity thing as far as the gems that create the Gauntlet, and basically Thanos. That's him wanting to appease death, correct? Because he's in love with death.
Yes.
And they kind of personified death as a female, I'm guessing, correct?
Yes.
And he was trying to do whatever he could to win her, and by using the gems, he was trying to destroy Earth, kind of thing.
Wiped out half the galaxy.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'm going through all these, and I wanted to. The next one that kind of catches my eye, something I know about. Oh, here I'll just quickly read over this. After Infinity War, or actually Infinity Gauntlet. Then you had Operation Galactic Storm, Rise of Midnight Suns, Revenge of Sinister Six. Infinity War says Magus, Adam Warlock's evil side creates evil doppelgangers of Earth's heroes to gain ultimate power. That sounds like a scroll war right there, is what that sounds like.
Yeah, and Adam Warlock might be in the whole Infinity War movie thing. His cocoon.
Oh, that might be like a secret, like a villain, I guess.
Yeah, in Guardians of the Galaxy, they had the cocoon that he regenerates in.
Okay.
In the Collector's, in one of his cages.
Okay.
So then at the end of the movie where they show Howard the Duck, you see the cocoon empty.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
See, I didn't catch that opening. Okay. Because then what's his deal? He's a villain, but who's he a main villain against the whole universe? Is he a big guy like Thanos, or what's his story?
There's Adam Warlock, who I don't even know his whole story, but he's the good version, and then the evil side of him is Magnus, and they're two separate characters. They look exactly alike. Adam Warlock's gold, and Magnus is purple.
Okay.
So I don't remember the whole deal on it because it's been so long since I've read any of that Infinity stuff.
Okay. So then we got Maximum Carnage, which I guess that's the introduction of maybe Carnage, which is a good villain. And then Miss Tech Wars, Siege of Darkness, which is the Rise of the Midnight Sun, which included Ghost Rider.
Yeah, it sucked.
Let's see, Phalanx Covenant.
That was
Generation X. That was basically the Generation X Foundation.
Yeah.
Then here's one here, the Clone Saga. That's one I know about because that's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
All right. That would create the Scarlet Spider. And then you get the villain called the Jackal out of that one.
Yeah.
And then Clone Saga, that was what's his name? Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. There's that one. Who was the guy that they said was basically a clone of Ben, Uncle Ben?
Is it
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Ben Reilly?
Yeah, there you go, Ben Reilly. There you go. I wonder if that's who they're talking about in that one.
Yeah.
The Scarlet Spider was him, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Because then after that you got Age of Apocalypse, which that's going to be with the movie coming out, right? And that's the dystopian timeline. They did that on the cartoon. That Bishop's involved in that one, isn't he?
No, he was involved in the cartoon, but
in the cartoon, but not in the book. Okay, so I'm going off the cartoon there.
He was the only one that remembered how it was before the Age of Apocalypse.
Okay.
Because it was a time travel story where
Professor
X's son Legion went back and tried to kill Magneto, but accidentally killed Professor X.
Yeah, that's what it says. Right? Legion travels back in time, and Legion's his son. That's what's his name? What's the kid's name? Charles Xavier's kid.
Yeah.
Not Legion, but what's his actual real name?
David Haller.
Is that what it is?
Are you thinking of Proteus?
Yeah, is that who I'm thinking of?
That's Moira McTaggart's son.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, so I'm getting them mixed up.
Yeah.
Now, in the Age of Apocalypse, that's when he changes Angel to Archangel, correct?
No, that happened way before that.
Way before that? Okay.
Yeah, that was late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
No, this was, so after Professor X dies, Magneto starts the X-Men, but Apocalypse gains power and takes over the world.
Okay.
And so this is him trying to destroy humans and a small band of X-Men trying to stop them, and like in it, Cyclops and Havoc are both work for Mr. Sinister, who's one of Apocalypse's henchmen.
Are we gonna see Sinister in the movie?
I don't think so.
Okay, are they not using the book for source material that closely then?
No, they're not.
Right. Awesome. That sucks. Okay, and then here in '96, Heroes Reborn. Wasn't that when Jim Lee and Liefeld and all them tried to say we're gonna redo everything?
Yeah, Liefeld and Lee came back, and they each had 2 titles. And basically, what happened was Professor X absorbed Magneto's personality and became Onslaught. And Onslaught killed the Fantastic Four and the Avengers.
Okay.
Franklin Richards created a parallel universe for them to live in, and it was all drawn by Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld.
Okay. But it was not well received, correct?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, yeah, because basically you're wiping out all. Because in '97, like a year later, they did Heroes Return, where all the heroes who died during Onslaught returned from Limbo. That was created by Franklin Richards. Because Franklin Richards is a mutant, correct?
Correct.
If I remember his history correctly, and he's like one of the most powerful mutants. Like they never get to a story, I guess, except for these like Elseworlds or flash forwards. But from what I know, because they always made fun of the fact that as a kid he's not because his sister Valeria's always she's the really smart one. They always give Franklin a hard time because he's just more like Uncle Johnny, basically, the way I give it. But when you go to those flash forwards, I think he's like the most powerful mutant in the world, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right. And then, let's see, we go Magneto War, Hunt for Xavier, the 12. Did the 12 sound familiar?
Yeah, the 12 is another Apocalypse storyline.
Yeah. This carries into the Age of Apocalypse arc, yeah. Evil Destruction, the Cure for the Legacy Virus. That one I'm familiar with. Legacy Virus is what gets his Cable, right?
No.
So he's got the Techno Virus or whatever.
Yeah, he's got
right?
the Techno-Organic Virus.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the details of the Legacy Virus. All I remember is...
A Cure for the Legacy Virus has been released, providing Magneto with a brand new army, helping mutants ready to wage a final battle against humanity. More traditional, old school X-Men storylines. Leads to reorganization of X-Men titles.
Yeah. And the way they ended that was there was a cure, but you had to inject into a mutant and it would kill him, and Colossus injected himself.
That's it, Colossus. Because there you go. I remember that. You told me about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Legacy Virus was very familiar to me for some reason. Because it comes up later on. I think it doesn't always like kind of pop up here and there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was in an X-Men story a few years ago.
Okay, and then this is where I got back into Marvel right here in 2004-ish. Because I know I got in with the Ultimate Universe, but then getting back into the 616 universe. Mm-hmm. Avengers Disassembled.
Yes.
And this is where I can go. This is one of those crossover events where I actually remember what happened. So you have a lot better memory than I do when it comes to all this stuff. Mm. But the Avengers Disassembled is actually a pretty big deal. Yeah. Because I'll read the quick synopsis. Scarlet Witch uses her powers to attack the Avengers physically and psychologically, resulting in the Avengers disbanding, setting the stage for the franchise being relaunched as New Avengers. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Thor brings about the end of Asgard and leads to a cancellation and relaunch of the Avengers titles. Because that was the big thing, because that's when Bendis took over for Avengers, and he also launched New Avengers. With New Avengers included Spidey and Wolverine. I remember the original lineup, which was why I was into that. I thought that was pretty cool. They put the two biggest names in the big title. So
yeah, and their thing was always DC has their biggest characters in the Justice League. The Avengers should be the same way. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And then they had another Secret War in 04-05, and I remember that one because it was painted by an artist. I'm trying to Gabriel D'Arco or something like that, I believe is his name. Which is a really beautiful book, but the story, I don't really remember much about it, to be honest with you.
It was dealing with them sneaking into, was it Latveria, Dr. Doom's area?
Yeah.
And
B-list supervillains with advanced technology. Fury recruits Captain America, Spidey, Daredevil, Black Widow, Luke Cage, Wolverine, superhuman S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Daisy Johnson for a private attempt to overthrow Latveria.
Yeah, and so none of them remember doing it.
Yeah. Avengers Disassembled, that was a big deal. I like that book. And then Secret War, kind of forgettable to me, to be honest with you. It was a really well-painted book. That was what stood out to me, that it was all painted. But the next event is the big one. That I think if Fox knew what they were doing, if Fox and Marvel could come together, House of M is where I think this resurgence of Marvel's basically dominance of DC, which even though I like DC books, I could always, say Marvel is the superior company, to be honest with you, when it comes to superhero books. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with me on that?
Yes, I do.
So I think House of M is where this really launches. Do you want to agree or disagree on that one?
That's pretty much where they've set up where everything was going after this.
Yeah, exactly. It was the launch point where that's a huge deal, and especially with the fact that with the success of the X-Men movies, X-Men were really popular. They've always been really popular, but they've always had more of a niche audience, I think. But the impact of House of M wasn't just solely against the mutants. It really was line-wide for Marvel, in my opinion. And it's one of those things where you could say the one line, and that's all you really need to know from the entire, 8-issue run, which was, I'll leave it to you, what was the main line?
No more mutants.
No more mutants. So that's when Scarlet Witch uses her powers to create a world in which mutants are in charge, but ultimately resulting in the populace of the world's humans being brought to near extinction. Which, the reason why I was a big fan of House of M was what the fallout of that was in regards to the X books. After that was Annihilation. Did you read Annihilation?
No, I never did.
I didn't either. That's a space book. And I'll give you this. DC has it on Marvel in regards to their space stuff. Like, I compare it to the Green Lantern Corps in DC versus Nova, Silver Surfer, Guardians of the Galaxy, at least pre-movie.
Yeah.
Green Lantern had it on them in regards to their space stuff. I guess this was their attempt to kind of launch their cosmic thing where you took the Silver Surfer, Skrull, Nova, and Ronan and had something to do with Annihilation Wave. I didn't read it. I didn't really have any inkling to want to read it, to be honest with you.
It's one of the stories I want to go back and read, just because that put the modern Guardians of the Galaxy on the map.
It did. So the Guardians were involved with that crossover event?
Yep.
But they didn't have their own book at that point, correct?
No, they had a short-lived one after that.
Okay. Oh, that was with Lanning and what's his name, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I know which book you're talking about.
Abnett, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So yeah, well, it has to do with Guardians, but I really just I think you could say that with Bendis' relaunch of Guardians, that's a great jumping on point. He launched that book right before the movie came out, or was it simultaneous when they kind of both hit at the same time?
It was a little bit before the movie.
A little bit, okay.
So a couple
really
months,
good. Really good book though. I really like that book. But after that, it's the next biggest event, and not only was it great writing, awesome art in this one as well from McNiven, Civil War, which is what at least the movie is taking some of. I don't think it's going to be an exact homage to the book itself, but they're taking the main points of it at least, right?
Yeah,
I'll give them that.
Yeah, they're hitting the main points, and there's a lot of stuff they can't do in the movie because of rights to characters.
Because rights, correct. But, Civil War, Superhuman Registration Act, nothing really more to say about that. I guess it concludes with Captain America's death, correct? Or I thought he died in his own book, though. They didn't have as part of the war book itself, though, correct?
Yeah, it was tie into it, but it was in his own book. Yeah, because he had turned himself in.
Because I'm trying to think, was it Crossbones?
Yeah.
They killed him? Okay, I just want to make sure I remember correctly. So, there you have it. Let's see. After that, the next thing they're talking about is World War Hulk, which I read those Hulk books. I was always a big fan of them exploring. As far as movies, I thought, because you had Planet Hawk, which they didn't list here, to be honest with you. I'm surprised they didn't have that on there as an event book.
Yeah.
Unless I skipped over it. No, I didn't skip over it. I thought Planet Hawk was first, because Planet Hawk was first when they exiled him, and World War Hulk was when Hulk came back and basically said, you guys set me off for no good reason, I'm going to fuck your world up. Which is basically what it was. Did you read both Planet and World War?
I read Planet. I didn't read World War.
Okay. Planet was really good, though.
Yeah,
I really like Planet Hawk. I know there's an animated movie of it. Is it an animated movie or is it an animated comic? I can't remember.
It was an animated movie of it.
Did you watch the movie?
I think I did.
Not memorable.
Yeah, it didn't stand out at all.
Okay, got you. So then after that, we've got the Spy Complex, which big fan of that in my part. That stems back to House of M.
Yeah.
And it's the birth of the first child with the X gene since that point.
Yeah.
And basically, you got a bunch of people trying to find the child first. I guess you have the Marauders, the Acolytes, the Reavers, Purifiers, and then Bishop wants to try to assassinate the child, which I can't remember. I guess that's to try to mess with the timeline to not get to his dystopian future.
Yeah, she was.
Okay.
Her birth, I think, was, or I don't remember exactly what it was. Somehow it was her. Yeah.
Okay.
She might have been responsible for it or something. I don't remember. But yeah, he was the bad guy of that.
Okay. And then after that, I'm showing Secret Invasion, which the main thing from Secret Invasion I take was, do you remember the fact that they would advertise Secret Invasion on TV?
Yeah.
And did that happen because that had Disney bought Marvel at that point?
I think that was right at the beginning of when they were doing Iron Man and stuff, or else it was close to it.
Well, yeah, because that's when Iron Man came out in 2008, right? So I guess that makes sense. I'm trying to make a big push. But Secret Invasion, the Skrull comes in, basically takes over heroes' forms and whatnot, if I remember correctly.
And they'd been setting that up for years, and Hawkeye's wife, Mockingbird, was actually she wasn't really killed. She was taken, and they had a Skrull in her place that ended up being killed.
Yep. Because at that point though, you had what was called Dark Reign, when Norman Osborn became the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. and created the Dark Avengers. Do you remember that? Basically, they had instead of Wolverine, they had Wolverine's son, which was what's his name, Dakin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the main point. I remember that. And they had what was it? Bullseye became Hawkeye. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
He basically took villains and remade them into versions of the heroes.
And then you had the Messiah War, which basically was Cable and Hope was that story.
Yeah.
And then you had Utopia.
Uncanny X-Force.
Yep. And I let in the Uncanny X-Force. I'm trying to go a little bit quicker here. God, there's so many events. You see what I'm talking about? They have all these events, which, okay, here, for example, I'm looking at 2010. 2010 alone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 event books in 1 year.
Yeah.
Do you agree with me that that's a little excessive?
Oh, yeah, I agree. It used to be, back in the 80s and 90s, they'd have one event a year, and it would go through, like, the annuals.
2010, 8 events? And then it started with Siege, which, do you remember Siege at all?
No, not really. I don't think I read it.
Basically, it was Norman Osborn invading Asgard. And basically, that's where they roll into the heroic age, where they overthrow Norman, and they basically it was basically a retcon back to normal Avengers.
Yeah.
Which I'm guessing they did that to kind of realign with the Avengers movie coming out, if I remember that correctly, or at least setting up to it.
Yeah.
Then Realm of Kings, I don't remember that. Second Coming was.
Cosmic.
Oh, that was more cosmic. Yeah.
Inhumans and stuff.
Yeah, Black Bolt, right? That was a big Black Bolt story, if I remember correctly. So.
Yeah, and it dealt with the third Summers brother. Okay.
And then, let's see, Second Coming. Oh, yeah, Third Summers brother. That's what Realm of Kings was about?
It dealt with him. They introduced him early mid-2000s.
It'd be Scott, Alex, and there's a third. What's the third one? Or are you talking about Nathan's brother, like as in Cable, like Cable had another brother?
No, it's Havoc and Cyclops' brother. I can't think of his name, but he ended up ruling the Shire Empire.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look into that one. Realm of Kings. Maybe I'll see if they have a library or something like that.
Yeah, because
how
they introduced him was back when that new X-Men team came along in the 70s with Wolverine, Nightcrawler.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually a team in between them that kind of got lost, and that's how they introduced Darwin.
Okay.
And pretty much they thought the whole team was killed, but this Summers brother survived.
Okay.
So I think they ended up killing him off.
Okay. Okay, then Second Coming, which this is a huge X-Men book because this was the final part of the trilogy of stories that began with Messiah Complex and continued into Messiah War.
Mm-hmm.
And then Second Coming was basically like Hope tapping into her power, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And it was the conclusion of Cable's efforts to save Hope, is what it's saying here. Basically, the return of Cable and Hope Summers to the present-day timeline, and Bastion's final campaign to destroy the X-Men leads to a number of new launches. Because before that was... No, okay, Schism comes after that. That's the big X-Men story after Hope's.
Yep.
So I consider it, you start with House of M, then you go into Cable, and basically it's Cable and Hope's big story is what I call it. So I love that story between the two of them. That's just really great writing on that one. Then let's see, you got Shadowland. I don't think you read Shadowland, did you? The Daredevil story where he takes over the Hand to try to take down... He tries to take down Kingpin, if I remember correctly.
I've read little bits and pieces of it. I think like Thunderbolt's tied into it.
Yeah, okay. And then Chaos War. I don't know anything about Chaos War. Did you read that one?
Chaos War. Sounds familiar, but I'm drawing a blank on it.
Okay. Something about Hercules. Because remember they replaced Hulk with Hercules for a little bit? And they call it the Incredible Hercules or something like that. That was dumb to me. Age of X. Reality change, Earth 616, replaced by a world where X-Men never came to be, and mutant kind has been hunted to extinction. blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it was all,
Age of X too much.
I think it was all tied to Legion kind of warping reality.
Okay. Fear Itself. Fear Itself was a weak crossover. I don't know if you read that one. It's basically the Asgardian god of fear, basically putting doubt into the head of all the heroes. It was not very good in my opinion. But the next one was a really good event because it leads into something that I think one day, this is my big hope, and I'll get to it. Schism. Did you read that one?
Yes.
Okay, so we both read that one. Basically, it's Wolverine versus Cyclops. That's all I call it. That's all you really needed to call it.
Yeah.
Where you had the two factions, the team split. Basically, Wolverine wanting to become more peaceful, and then this is where you see Cyclops start to go off the deep end.
Yeah, a little more militant.
Very militant. Kind of, basically, I call it, what I wanted to say, I call it is basically Magneto versus Xavier version 2.0, where you have the chosen one, which is Cyclops, which you would think would become the new Xavier, right?
Yeah.
When you say the passing of the torch. But no, it's Wolverine is becoming the new Xavier, and you got Cyclops becoming the new Magneto. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
And then Spider Island, which that's a big Spider-Man book, but I don't think you read too many Spider titles. Which that led into Superior Spider-Man, which is a really good arc, which I would highly recommend. It's really, really good. That's when Doc Ock takes over Spider-Man. Doc Ock dies, but his mind transfers into Peter Parker's body and becomes Spider-Man for a while. If you haven't read it, I do highly recommend it. It's only 30-some-odd issues. It's really good.
I've read a handful of issues of it.
So Schism leads into what I was saying before. If we ever get it, it's basically what we've always been hoping for from a DC side. We'll finally see Justice League. Mm-hmm. This is what I want to see. Avengers versus X-Men. You can't tell me how that would not be awesome to see. You're talking about every single hero involved with this one. Basically, this is when Scott really loses it, and the Phoenix Force kind of separates into four different, I think, goes into Cyclops.
5 of them. Iron Man
Cyclops,
tries...
Colossus, and all them. Yeah. No, you go ahead.
Iron Man tries to repel the Phoenix Force from coming to Earth, but instead he splits it into 5 pieces, and it goes to Cyclops, Colossus, Magic, Magneto, and Emma Frost.
Yeah. But during the process of that, that's when Cyclops kills Professor X.
Right.
And then that's what launches the Marvel Now initiative after that. And you go into Age of Ultron, which, it's funny they named the sequel Age of Ultron, but really the book, that source material as far as Age of Ultron, this event, I thought they would be using this event because it seems like they want to kind of stay current with the, new events, kind of, I guess, use a little bit as source material, but this Age of Ultron did not match up at all with the Age of Ultron movie, the book itself.
No, and the problem they had with that was Ultron's been an established villain for years in the comic book. Mm. So introducing him this way to the movie audience just probably wouldn't have the same effect, and people that aren't familiar with him would be questioning him.
Yeah. And then you got Infinity, which really odd book, but it's been building for a long time because you had Hickman involved with that one. Because you had Bendis on Avengers for forever and a half. Then you had Hickman come in and take over, and he'd been laying the seeds for Infinity for a long time. Which basically, you had Avengers in space, but then no one was on Earth. But then you had Black Bolt releasing the Terrigen Mist, and I guess that's kind of how they're trying to launch the Inhumans again, was basically what that was all about. That's kind of what I said. Here's how I look at Infinity. Marvel doesn't have the rights to mutants. They had the TV show, S.H.I.E.L.D., dealing with Inhumans because they're saying, okay, we can't have X-Men, well, Inhumans are our new X-Men, basically, is what they're doing. And they were trying to push Inhumans, which that had not been a big thing in the comics, but they're trying to make it a big thing now because they don't have the rights. Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I do agree with you. I didn't read the series, but that's how I've taken it, because they seem to be pushing the Inhumans a lot more.
Okay.
The show has taken it up.
Okay. And then, to be honest with you, after Schism and after Avengers vs. X-Men, that's kind of where I had to drop off from keeping up with current titles. I haven't actually kept up current. I'm so far behind. At this point, I've gone back and read just the event books. I haven't been able to keep up with actual monthly titles for anything. Because after that, like Battle of the Atom, I did read the actual crossover, like, collection.
Yeah.
But the individual, titles leading up to that, didn't read any of that. But that has to do with Bendis' relaunch of All New X-Men, I guess, where he took the original class and brought them through the time stream to present day, so they could see what Scott has done and basically go from there. And I guess that's where they're crossing. Then they went and they did something really weird. I don't understand how this works, but they crossed Guardians of the Galaxy with X-Men. I don't. After that, I get lost, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they actually had two crossovers.
They did. It's part between Guardians and X-Men.
Yeah.
Okay. And they what other crossovers did they do with that one then?
I don't remember what the first one was, but the second one was the Black Vortex.
Okay. See, I have no idea what that is, to be honest with you.
I didn't actually read it.
Okay. Then Goblin Nation was the next one. Again, that's a Spidey heavy title. Original Sin. Again, this event book and the event prior to that, Infinity, you didn't really need them in my opinion. They didn't hold up to anything like Avengers vs. X-Men did. Avengers vs. X-Men, I think, is the last big crossover, in my opinion, that actually is impactful, we'll say. Because Original Sin was basically they killed Uatu the Watcher.
Yeah.
That was the one point of that. They just wanted to kill the Watcher. I don't think it really didn't lay any seeds to say what's, I guess it launched, I guess, Avengers now versus Marvel now, is what I'm reading here, where you have Bucky is the new man on the wall, which does that mean Bucky is the new Captain America at that point? But I thought Bucky was the Captain America when Cap died, and I guess Cap came back to life somehow, and then Bucky then became Winter Soldier again?
No.
Because I know at some point Falcon is now Captain America, right?
Yeah. Bucky, I think, took on a role of, like, the Watcher / Nick Fury.
Okay.
Nick Fury revealed that he had all these LMDs that have been him for years, and he's actually this old, feeble man.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it was.
Then Thor no longer is holding the hammer, and Angela, they reintroduced Angela for that big court case, I guess, and she's been Thor's sister the whole time, I guess?
Something like that. I don't know.
I didn't follow. This has to be at the point where Jane Foster becomes the new Thor, I guess, or at least right around that, right, where they introduce female Thor. How does Jane Foster become the new Thor? I don't understand how they just make her Asgardian god.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't read any of that.
See, it's impossible to keep up with all. Like, I know all about it, but I couldn't tell you how it all happened.
Yeah.
Death of Wolverine, which, is he still dead, or did they bring him back yet?
The Wolverine we know is dead, but Old Man Logan is now in the Marvel Universe.
Okay, Old Man Logan. So basically, it wasn't an Elseworld story, but you're talking about Millar's Old Man Logan from his run. So basically, they bring him back to the time stream, I'm guessing?
Through Secret Wars, yeah.
Okay, through Secret Wars. Okay, so I'd have to read. That's the whole point of this podcast, was to get to Secret Wars. Basically, the whole point was for Secret Wars was for you to catch me up on what I don't understand. That's what this whole thing's about. Because then I guess Axis was one. I don't know anything about Axis. I knew of it, but I don't know anything about it.
They flipped the personalities of good guys and bad guys. And I guess that's what they did with DC. That's the exact thing they did with DC. They basically took all the villains and made them the new Justice League. And right around the same time too. That's kind of weak, to be honest with you. But the big thing that came out of it, though, is revealed that Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are not Magneto's children.
Really?
Which happened to coincide with the movie.
Oh, really? That's what came out of that?
Yeah.
So who are they saying that they're the kids of then? They never addressed that.
I don't know. I didn't read it. And it just didn't appeal to me. So.
Okay. So Magneto no longer has children. And then is this on a different? Is this like an Elseworld thing, or is this actually canon? Like
This is actual.
even right now.
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Then you run into Spider-Verse, which I haven't read Spider-Verse. I'm going to read that because I liked the Goblin Nation. That was a really good face-off between Superior Spider-Man and the Goblin King is what they call it, Green Goblin at that point. That was really good. So I'm interested in Spider-Verse because I'm hoping Spider-Verse will tell me how we get to Spider-Gwen and all the new Spider people. There's a lot of Spider people running around right now.
Yeah.
Time runs out. I read this, but I don't remember much of it, so I'm going to read a quick synopsis of it. Because most of the Avengers books are the main crossover ones that you kind of really need to follow, I guess, to understand what's going on in the whole universe. Because basically, doesn't that time runs out is what leads into Secret Wars, right? That's where they find out that the universes between Ultimate Universe and the 616 are starting to collide.
Yeah.
They only can be one universe.
Yeah, and Dr. Doom and Dr. Strange find it out, and Doom is going around and destroying these parallel universes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, because then you had, didn't you mention this before, the Black Vortex?
Yeah, that was the Guardian.
That's a Guardian and an X-Men crossover.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm behind on Guardians, I should not read Black Vortex because that'll spoil a lot of what happened between the original launch of Guardians and Black Vortex. Or that because I know there's the trial of Jean Grey in there too.
Yeah, that was the first crossover between the two.
Okay, see, I don't know it. I'm going to read those. I'm going to try and go back and read all the Guardian stuff because it was really good. And that leads us to where we are now at Secret Wars. But I'm also going to just read this real quick to you to see. Actually, no. I'm sorry. Let's go to Secret Wars because I'm really interested in reading these things that are coming up in 2016 of what we're going to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I won't even touch on any of the Ultimate stuff because I was really into the Ultimate Universe. You kind of like Ultimates, the Avengers team of it. You didn't really read Ultimate Spider-Man too much, or did you kind of just browse that stuff here and there?
I read probably the first 60 issues, and then they got cut because of money constraints.
Okay. Yeah.
And I read a lot of the X-Men stuff.
Okay.
Probably
Which
about
actually,
the same point.
that remains strong because I'll be honest with you, Ultimate X-Men turned into Ultimate Kitty Pryde. And I've always been a fan of Kitty's character, and she turned into a badass in the Ultimate Universe. And she's really cool to watch, basically her character. I'm guessing that when Secret Wars is done, because here's my thing about Secret Wars. I say Secret Wars is basically you're taking the two universes. Ultimate Line was failing. It wasn't selling as well as they wanted it to. And they're just basically cutting a bunch of titles. But this is where I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. Because I thought I emailed you about it.
Mm-hmm.
But let me just wrap up the Ultimate talk real quick. I followed Ultimate Spider-Man all the way through. It was worth it because it leads into Miles Morales, and I love Miles. I hope Miles, he's going to come to the 616 universe. I know that. That's coming. I'll need for you to explain to me what's happening in the 616 universe from all that. Ultimate X-Men was really good at the beginning. It really fell off towards the end, but then it turned into Ultimate Kitty Pryde, like I said. Not an actual title, but that's what I called it myself. It was just Ultimate Kitty Pryde. And to be honest with you, Ultimate Fantastic Four, through the first 20 some odd issues, I guess, because he had Millar and Bendis both work on it, if I remember. If I know Millar for sure, I don't remember Bendis. I think he did.
Yeah.
When those two had their hands, when they put their footprint on that book, Ultimate Fantastic Four had Josh Trank not been a dumbass. If he would have just used the book for source material and followed the book to a T, I guarantee you Ultimate Fantastic Four as a movie, just make it Fantastic Four, Fantastic Four would not have been the train wreck that it was. It really would not have been. But if you ever want to go back, at least, did you ever read the least first 20 issues of that?
I read the first 5 or 10. I didn't get too far.
I'm telling you, get through all the Millar and Bendis stuff. It's worth your time to read. It really is. Really good book. So I'm not going to talk too much about Black Vortex because I want to get to the whole point of the podcast again, at least for me, so which is going to turn into us splitting it up. Okay, so Secret Wars. Am I right in what I was saying is, as far as, say you had someone that's watching the movies, and they kind of want to get into comics, a jumping on point. Would this have been a good jumping on point for someone to come into the Marvel Universe? Would you say that's a good point? Okay. What's your reason for saying that? After Secret Wars would be a good start. Why would it be after it be good?
Because Secret Wars takes all of these different storylines that they've done over the years and kind of re-images them like they kept going after the comic.
Okay.
So, like, there was an Old Man Logan book, which kind of was from the Mark Millar stuff, but it's like the same Wolverine character.
Okay.
And it's him trying to find his way, and he ends up in a different zone. They have different, like, almost like countries, and each one is like a realm from one of these other books. So there's a planet.
Are those the battle worlds?
Well, there's the battle worlds, and then there war zones were the other. They had the basic title, the war zones, the battle world, and then the last days, which takes place in the 616.
Okay.
And kind of ties up things.
So are the battle worlds and the war zones, are those the tie-in issues? And then the main Secret War book is that, how do I describe that? Like you said, the end of, like, you didn't say end of days. What'd you say?
Well, there's just the main Secret Wars book, and that dealt with Doctor Doom, Fantastic Four a lot, and then pulled in pieces from other areas.
Again, the whole point of it was the fact that you had the two universes going to collide, and both could not survive.
Right.
So I guess the premise of the book, at the conclusion of it, was at some point, I'm guessing Doom, Mr. Fantastic, or Iron Man. Again, I haven't read it, so don't spoil it for me. But eventually, they're going to. Well, one of those three is my guess. Kills off the Ultimate Universe, so that the 616 can survive. But yet, by doing so, they allowed alternate characters somehow to come through, probably a wormhole or something, to join the 616 universe. Would be my guess. And that's without me even reading the books and me just having read. I think I read the first issue of Secret Wars and just knowing that the Ultimate Universe was coming to him, but knowing that Miles is coming over, that leads me to believe that some Ultimate characters are going to survive. Although I've read some places, it almost sounds like some Ultimate titles are going to survive and still be called Ultimate titles.
Yeah. Yes and no to everything you said.
Okay. See? It's so confusing. All right, go for it. School me on this.
Okay, so basically they take elements of all these different universes, and the 616 and the Ultimate are just parts of them. And they make Battle World is what they call it, and it's all these different regions of different areas. So there's like 6 different X-Men team because they have an Inferno one, and they have an Age of Apocalypse one. And then there's I think there's 2 Hulk worlds, one based off Future Imperfect, which was a early 90s Hulk story, and then one which was Planet Hulk, where everybody in it's a Hulk. Jesus. So
here's my point.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. It was probably good that we went through every single event going back to early 90s, because what you're telling me is that this Secret Wars, which again, I love how they use the name of a event they did back, way back when.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand why they couldn't just come up with a new title for it. But you're telling me every single event that we kind of discussed plays into this one event here.
Yeah, and if you didn't read the events, you wouldn't be completely lost.
Okay.
But it helps to know what's going on.
It does explain. It makes it a lot easier to understand.
Yeah. So, if you're reading the Age of Apocalypse book, if you knew what happened in the Age of Apocalypse comic, you would more understand what's going on, why certain characters acting the way they are. If you read the Old Man Logan series, when you read the Secret War tie-in, you understand everything that happened to Logan up to that point.
Okay.
So,
because if I remember correctly, you're talking about from the Millar book, that's when you had Logan and Hawkeye in a Jeep, basically. God, I'm trying to remember that book. It was from a while ago now. But it had to do with him, and they were trying to it was him and Hawkeye, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What was the premise of that one? You're not spoiling for me. You're just going to refresh my memory on that one. What was that one?
It was where Mysterio tricked him into killing all the X-Men, and it led to the downfall of all the heroes, and the United States was run by supervillains.
By Hulk. Well, it was run by Hulk, right?
Well, the Hulk had one territory, and
okay, yeah.
like he went into it, they were going across country, and let's see, there were Hulks by where he lived, where Logan lived, and I think they ended up killing his family because he was trying to stay on everything at that point.
Okay.
But him and Hawkeye go across the country, and they run into other villains, and they're making a delivery. I don't remember exactly. I'll have to go back and reread the whole thing now. But
yeah,
you basically know that Wolverine's feeling guilty because he led to the downfall of all the superheroes.
Yeah. So,
So I've got the titles pulled up here.
Okay.
There were 9 issues of the regular series. There were 10 different titles for the last days. There were 15 for Battle Worlds, and for the War Zones, there was a total of 32 titles.
Oh my God! How could you even possibly try to follow all that?
It was impossible, and I tried to at first, reading digital copies of everything.
Yeah.
But I only got 2 or 3 issues into most of the series.
And then something that you said, we were again, I'd asked you, was it over or not yet? Because I thought I'd read that it was going to be over soon because I think they were going to be launching into Civil War II pretty soon. But it was just a matter of asking, because you said, I was like asking you, tell me what I absolutely need to read from this event, because sometimes it does help to read those tie-ins to make it make more sense into the main story, because there's so much time that elapses between issue 1 and 2 of the event, where if you read a tie-in, it'll help refresh your memory what you're about to read in issue 2 from last time you read the issue 1. But you said it did no good on this event because they were relaunching books, because I guess their new thing was, because like, okay, over in DC, you had the New 52, and then New 52 went through a couple of events, which what makes them differ in my opinion, where they do event books. What Marvel does the same thing, where you have Spider-Man events for Spider titles and like Hulk events for Hulk titles, but in DC they don't do as many main events that Marvel does.
Yeah.
And what DC did was Convergence. I said, hey, in Convergence, it looks like they're trying to simplify things. And I guess maybe Secret Wars is trying to do that, where they're giving you tastes of all of their events going back to the early 90s and maybe trying to simplify things, where in DC, now it's no longer the new DC, or it's not the new 52 anymore. Now it's DCU. It's spelled YOU, where now they're doing all new, all different Marvel. Because what was it before? It was all new Marvel. Oh, no,
all new.
Sorry, it was Marvel Now. No, it was Marvel Now. And then they did all new, and now they're doing all new, all different, correct?
Yeah.
And it's basically, is it a retcon, or is this just basically saying let me ask you, is this their version of the New 52? That's what I'm asking you. Is this what's going to happen because of Secret Wars?
Partially. Because...
What is your opinion of that? Because you hated New 52. Because you were pretty locked in. Pre-New 52, you were still okay with DC books, kind of.
Yeah.
You were never a huge DC fan, but you still didn't hate them. At least that's what I think you do.
Yeah.
But New 52 basically killed it for you. You said once they did New 52, you were done.
Well, yeah,
and,
because they took the established characters and changed, like, the ones that I was into. Red Robin was a different character at that point. Superboy was a different character at that point.
Well, Red Robin was still Tim Drake, but it wasn't the Red Robin that
right.
I had also grown to love, too, because of where it started in Robin, turned into Red Robin. And all of a sudden, to be honest with you, Tim Drake's just a throwaway character in the DC universe now.
Right.
Which I agree, that's a dumb with them. But so all new, all different Marvel is what's going to happen because of Secret Wars. And I guess for those that are like me, where they can't keep up with what's going on for one reason or another, again, it was taking 616 Ultimate, smash them together. We're going to have some characters from the Ultimate Universe survive. Maybe even some. They're not going to be called Ultimate Book anymore, I guess, right? Like, we're not going to have Ultimate X-Men. but we'll have Ultimate Kitty Pryde would be my guess, appear in some kind of book in the 616 universe.
I don't know if she will. There's a few of them that have made it over.
Okay.
As
So, like,
far
for
as
example,
titles, the Ultimates is the only one, and it's like another Avenger team.
just another Avenger team. Okay,
Yeah.
so they're going to call it the Ultimates, but the Ultimate Universe will no longer exist. How confusing is that?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Good God. Okay, so then you're going to, so basically because like Miles is I think the whole point of doing maybe this whole thing of colliding universes was just so they can have an excuse to get Miles into the 616. Could you almost make that argument?
Yeah, you could.
And I'm wondering why. Why are they making such a huge? Because they're maybe going to say that. Can they say that Fox doesn't own Miles? That Marvel owns Miles, and maybe that's what they're trying to do, so they don't have to worry about the legality of, working something out with Fox. They can then make their own Spider-Man movie and make it with Miles. Do you think that's what the end goal of all this is?
It's hard to say because the movies are where they make the money at.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very possible, but that seems like a lot of work to do to get to it.
But then you're not having to worry about working stuff out with Fox.
Yeah, but you still have the problem with the name Spider-Man.
Okay. Because then what I'm reading right now, okay, all new, all different. But what I found fascinating was you were telling me over email that some of those all new, all different, they've already launched like 5 titles before Secret Wars was even done.
Yeah, the last issue of the Secret Wars series came out, I think, 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And like
other books have already been launched for a while at that point?
Yeah. But they're doing the whole jump forward 9 months. So.
Oh, like they did with DC where they said like 5 years later or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So they jump forward a little less than a year, and I'm still trying to figure it out.
Because basically, okay, then this is also a sales ploy because I'm reading here where they're going to relaunch 55 to 60 titles with number 1 issues.
Yeah.
That's all it's about, is to get people to jump on number 1s.
Yeah.
And that's 60 titles, man. That's so many books.
Yeah.
You take that, okay, here, you try to do, what was it? Here, good Lord, I want to even do the math right now. Because let's say on average, again, we'll say it's, what, I don't even have to, it's $240.
Yeah.
Never mind, if they do 60 titles, it's $240 just for 1 month's worth of books.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's wrong. They don't know. They don't have a clue. Because there's people like you and me who probably want to know what's going on across the whole universe. We could never afford to get all those books.
Right, and there's going to be the ones that don't sell, and they're going to end up canceling them after 5 issues. They've already announced the first one.
Oh, which one's being canceled already?
I think so. I think I read Black Knight is being canceled.
Which one?
Black Knight.
What's Black Knight?
An Avenger character from the 80s and 90s. They
really?
probably used him.
Jesus. Okay, because here's what I'm reading here. They already have the 2016 crossovers listed. Spider-Women, which again, I don't know how we have Spider-Gwen. And then I don't know who Cindy Moon is. And then Jessica Drew is that's Jessica Drew in the Ultimate Universe is his clone, but that's Spider-Girl, I guess, here in that's from the Clone Saga, right?
Right. She's Spider-Woman. She's been around forever.
Yeah. And I guess that's having to do with them. Now, if Cindy Moon is Silk, that's a new character that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They just created her from Superior Spider-Man. Interesting way of introducing her. That's all I'll say. Because if I tell you much more about, unless you follow her, I'd recommend reading the book to see what they do with her. To be honest with you. Now then they're doing Avengers Standoff. Do you know anything about what's happening with that one?
No.
Basically, it says here, celebrate Captain America's 75th anniversary. Avengers will find themselves in what looks like any other remote small town known as Pleasant Hill, where this gay community holds a dark and sinister secret. I guess I won't read anymore, so I don't want to do any spoilers or anything like that.
I've seen a little bit about it, and I know Captain America got de-aged or whatever, and he was an old man for a while, and that's why Falcon took over.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so
I remember reading, because that happened in Time Runs Out. Cap was really old in that. And he's the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. at that point. Is he still the head of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah, he is. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure.
Because wasn't Iron Man was the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a while, and I guess he went to outer space with the Guardians. Last I knew of Iron Man, I don't know where, and I think he's back here now.
Yeah.
Bendis took over Iron Man. I know that. If I haven't been reading the book, and I honestly have no idea what's going on with Iron Man's character beyond the fact that he went to space, but he's back now. I don't know what he's doing now though.
I was reading it when they relaunched it last time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was still a pretty good book after the Matt Fraction.
Oh, you're talking about the relaunch. You're talking about the Iron Man relaunch with Fraction and LaRocca?
No, after that. They relaunched it again after that. I guess with the new stuff.
Yeah, they did. I'm trying to remember who was the writer on that book when they relaunched after that.
I don't remember. I picked it up for a while. And it introduced his brother.
Oh, he has a brother now. Oh, jeez, I'm way behind on him then.
Yeah, it was interesting. I'll say that.
Okay, but you don't remember who wrote it? I was going to look up who. I'll have to look up who wrote it so I can see that he's got it at the library though. But here, I mean, okay, without you don't have Wiki pulled up, do you, to see what I'm looking at?
No,
I just want you to
got
guess.
the Secret War stuff.
Okay, I want you to guess what the next X-Men crossover title is going to be. Just guess what you think it's going to be.
Oh, jeez. Oh, I vaguely remember reading something about it. I'm drawing a blank now.
Well, just think about the movie coming out. What do you think they're going to involve?
Oh, the new Apocalypse.
Yeah, it's called Apocalypse Wars. I'm like, they're doing that because of the movie. They wouldn't be doing anything to do with Apocalypse unless they had the movie coming out.
Yeah.
Because I guess there's how many X books are there right now? I guess they're saying here it involves 3 X titles. There has to be more than 3 X titles right now, right? Because there has to be the Uncanny X-Men, which is Scott's team, and then you had Wolverine's team, but then I think you still had you still have X Factor, right? Is X Factor still around?
X Factor's not around.
They got rid of X Factor, but that'd been around for a long time. That was Peter David's baby for a long time.
Yeah. And it was an awesome, awesome book.
But that's gone now. So what's the third title then? Or there has to be more than just 3 though.
Yeah, I think they got all new X-Men, or all new, all different X-Men. Uncanny, Extraordinary X-Men. Those are the 3 I can think of off the top of my head.
Who's an Extraordinary X-Men?
That, I think, is Storm leads that team. And the book has Old Man Logan and Jean Grey, and let's see, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Magic, Iceman, and it deals with mutant refugees.
Okay. So all new X-Men, that was with the original team coming back. Is that still the premise of that story?
Yeah, and it deals with all the original X-Men except for Jean. X-23's in there.
Okay.
And then Uncanny's being relaunched because they had the 500th issue. But that is a Magneto-led team, and it's more bad guys. Sabretooth is on the team. His mind got kind of jumbled with the Axis thing, so he's kind of a good guy now.
Okay.
Psylocke, Phantom X. I don't remember.
So basically, they could take a lot of X-Force numbers, what it sounds like, and throw them in there is what they did.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. And then last but not least, for the events listed to this point, Civil War 2, which we kind of saw that happening because, hey, guess what? We got a movie coming out called Civil War. I wonder if they're going to kind of correlate with when they happen. Which, they're saying this event will happen post, because Civil War comes out March, right?
Yeah.
May.
No, May.
May, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that comes out in May. This hits in June is when they're saying this thing will start.
Yeah, and it's going to be a little different because I think it centers on Iron Man and Captain Marvel.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and I think
predictive power divides the Marvel heroes on how to best capitalize aggregated information. With Captain Marvel leaving the charge to profile future crime. This sounds like Minority Report.
Yeah.
They're going to profile future crime. This is Minority Report with superheroes. Oh my God. I think they're running out of ideas. That's hilarious. That's too funny. So there you have it. You officially caught me up with the Marvel Universe, and I think what I've learned from our conversation here is that, again, it's way oversaturated. The main problem that comics has and will always have, even though they're doing, basically this is the Marvel version of New 52, is that there's still going to be way too many books. And even though you're telling me that, hey, post-Secret Wars is kind of a thing, okay, Secret Wars touches on every single event, kind of going back to the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And after Secret Wars, you can kind of say, scratch those, we're off to a brand new world, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, for the most part.
Kind of, right? Because it sounds like you still need to know everything that's ever happened to keep up with all this stuff. So that's crazy. That's just, even reading the Wikipedia summaries of this stuff, even that's kind of overwhelming. That's so crazy. So there you have it. Minisodes. I guess we'll say minisodes 24.1 and 24.2.
Yeah.
Going over the Marvel universe. I think what we'll do next, Jay, as far as for maybe a comic podcast, is I will try to read Secret War, and we'll maybe do our reviews of that event, because then after that it'll be a kind of a relaunch of the Marvel universe. Maybe I'll try to jump on somewhere and catch up on a few books and get caught back up. So there you have it. Let us know what you thought. Give us your thoughts on Marvel's universe at this point. Tell us what you think about the Marvel versus DC, because as I kind of hinted at there, it seems like everything that Marvel does, DC does, and vice versa, at least thematically, we'll say. And you can see how the movies tie into it. Thanks for listening. I'm Matt.
I'm Jay.
And do whatever it is you do. Peace.
And there you have it, episode 27. Like mentioned, you can find us on our website, Nyrdcast.com. That's Nyrdcast. You can find us on the Inside Joke, Outside Voice Network, IJOV.net. Look us up on iTunes, Twitter, Facebook, all the social media. Here is the Freedom Paradox with their song, Flip the Switch.
I don't think there'll ever be a time or a place for these thoughts of mine. All these icons run through my head, and I question everything I've read. Rip me from my shallow mind and force me to use my time. Did we ever clarify what really happens when we die? As I sit and wait for hopes of all these tour dates, will I write what I'm afraid to speak? And I get on stage, my knees get weak. I never imagined a life like this where